While rescuing his sister from pagan sectarians, Thomas didn't suspect that he would have to face a real deity. But what if the guy not only got to see the goddess, but also take her place? The Richardson family receives a letter from their only daughter, Jennifer, who asks her father to pay the ransom for her. The girl reports that she is imprisoned on the island, and if her father does not bring the money or contact the police, her life will end. The girl's rescue is entrusted to her brother, Thomas. The guy pretends to be one of the members of the sect and goes to the island to save Jennifer. One of the parishioners is suspicious of Thomas, especially after he tries to save a lamb, but the guy manages not to give himself away. Together with the others, he arrives on the island, getting out of which will not be easy at all. Walking through the village, Thomas meets a young boy, Jeremy, who smiles happily at Fionn, the daughter of one of the founders of the sect. Quinn notices this as well. He hurries to get his daughter away to prevent any irregularities. The arrivals are examined by a doctor, and then each is given an empty jar. Not knowing what it is for, Thomas drops the jar in the room allotted to him and hurries to look around. A few hours later, Thomas is invited to the first sermon, and on the way he meets Andrea, Malcolm's daughter, who is nothing like the humble parishioner. Malcolm tells the newcomers about how he was convicted of betraying the crown, but he managed to escape with 2 associates and they founded a new world on this island. According to the old man, they were led to these lands by the voice of a goddess they have worshipped for many years, who gives them crops and fertility. After the ceremony, the cult founders gather around the captive, who the guards say is hiding money from his community. Malcolm realizes that the helpers were wrong and the old man doesn't have a penny, but to prevent him from telling the others about the torture, the founders end his torment. After sundown, all the villagers gather at the pub, but Jeremy and Fionn seclude themselves on the beach, breaking the rules of the community. The young men dream that someday they will stop hiding and build a communal house using wood from an abandoned boat. At midnight, the elder announces a curfew, and when everyone has gone home, Thomas goes out into the village to explore it better. He manages to see the locals draining blood, and Malcolm goes down into the cellar, which leads to a secret passage. Unexpectedly, Thomas runs into Fionn and Jeremy, but the company leaves the explanation for later so that neither of them will fall into the hands of the commandant. Back home, Thomas sees the very same jars filled with blood at the door to each room. Realizing that this could give him away, he pours some liquid from a nearby jar into his own, not noticing that a mysterious old woman is watching him. He does not manage to avoid the sacrifice. He loses some blood, pricked by a thorn on the key. Drops of blood fall to the floor and are grabbed greedily by the old woman. Thomas immediately draws a diagram of the village so he won't forget anything. In the meantime, Malcolm gets out of an underground tunnel somewhere in the woods, at the gate of a huge barn. In the morning, Thomas is awakened by a knock on the door announcing the start of his work shift. He takes the opportunity to thank Jeremy for not giving him away, but in return the guy asks him to help him chop up an abandoned boat. While working, Thomas tries to find out the orders of the island and whether Jeremy knows his sister. The guy is very frightened when he sees a picture of Jennifer, but he has to tell Thomas that the girl is being held captive, hoping to get money for her to support the cult. Things are not going well in the village. Another sheep gives birth to a sick lamb, and Malcolm is sure that it's all about the lack of sacrifices. But he is also worried about the presence of a traitor on the island, whom they can't find. Andrea notices a strange smile on Fionn's face, and the girl confesses to her friend that she suspects she is pregnant. The novices do not manage to discuss it in detail. The older women keep a close watch on the order. Gathering all the newcomers in the church, Malcolm makes them quote the local scripture. Thomas waits in terror for his turn, but he is lucky the man standing in front of him turns out to be a spy of the king, and a scuffle breaks out in the hall. Thomas manages to earn Malcolm's recognition, thanks to the fact that he saves him from the blow of a buddy. For this, the founder spills blood in return for the favor and promises to thank the newcomer for his rescue by ordering Andrea to stitch the guy up. After the operation, the couple manages to talk a little, and Thomas admits that Andrea does not look like a hermit at all. But the girl avoids this conversation, not wanting to get in trouble. After sunset, Thomas is going to look around the village again, but he is stopped by the voice of Malcolm, who brings Jennifer to the center and demands that the one who came to her rescue to show up. The guy barely manages to contain himself, but he realizes that he can't stand up to the sect alone. The next day, Fionn locks herself in the restroom to examine herself, unaware that she is being watched by her father, who has guessed what happened. Local teenagers amuse themselves by waving sticks in Jennifer's face, but Andrea comes to the captive's rescue and forbids the sectarians from robbing the girl of the last thing she has, her dignity. Malcolm and Quinn are about to throw a party, during which they will search the rooms of the tenants and find the traitor. After seeing his sister taken away, Thomas orders Jeremy to hit ready, as he will need help escaping. He plans to do it during the celebration, but the evening starts too strangely. In the hallway, the guy is met by a stranger in a creepy mask, who runs away without saying anything. Andrea tries to get Thomas to dance with her, but the guy runs off to a secret meeting with Jeremy. While the founders search the residents' rooms, Thomas sneaks into Malcolm's basement, hoping to find his sister. But just then, Malcolm finds a village plan scrawled on a sheet from a holy book in the newcomer's room. Frank, the cult's third founder and Jeremy's father, finds his son under the leader's house when he helps Thomas get inside. Without giving up his son, Frank leads his friends to the manhole, and Malcolm instructs his aides to pull the traitor out of the secret tunnel. Malcolm races to the woodshed, expecting to catch Thomas there. But the boy hears heavy footsteps and does not rise to the surface, hoping to find shelter in the tunnel and not fall into a trap. Finding a hole with bloody water, the guy hides in it while Frank passes by. The old man is nearly killed by Malcolm's gun, who expected to see a traitor in the tunnel. In his shelter, Thomas gets creepy in addition to the waste. He notices a live chicken. But the guy becomes even scarier when an old woman with strange eyes and a grin appears in front of him from the water. The guy manages to get out, and after washing off the blood, he looks around. Thomas finds himself in an ancient cave, the walls of which are painted with pagan drawings and symbols, among which there is an image of the goddess of this island, the same old woman. Malcolm visits the goddess, who now sits on her throne in the roots of the trees. The elder is offended that the old woman has shown herself to be a traitor, but to placate her, he spills some of his blood and watches as flowers bloom all around. At the same time, someone in a wicker mask brings in a living sack and hangs it from a rope. Thomas wakes up to the voice of Andrea, who has easily found the boy. The girl brings the guest clean clothes, and seeing his wounded back, she asks Thomas to tell her about himself. The guy admits that he was once an apostle, but God did not protect him, and his flock having been captured by savages in China, he had to endure a lot of pain. Andrea is sure her father will let Jennifer go when he learns that Thomas is her brother, but the boy disappoints the beauty, assuring her that Malcolm will spare no one. As the village comes back to life after the feast, Andrea brings Thomas to safety and tells him about the goddess who for years allowed their parched land to bear fruit. But now things are different. Something has angered the deity, and she has stopped providing a harvest for the sect's life. Fionn tells Jeremy about her situation, and the boy tells his girlfriend that they should run away tonight. While no one is home, the girl packs her things, but for this activity, she is caught by her father. Locking the door, Quinn punishes his daughter. At this time, Malcolm finds Frank, who is packing his boat to escape from the island with his son. The old man tells his friend he wants no more part in the kidnappings and keeping the goddess in chains, but Malcolm asks the helper to stay and promises to make things right. Quinn decides to unburden his daughter, not wanting to have a grandchild with Jeremy. By the time the guy comes running to get his bride, he finds her breathless body with no baby inside. Jeremy tries to get revenge on the old man, but Quinn proves to be stronger. He runs outside and blames the guy for Fionn's death and orders him to prepare for purification. Looking for help, Jeremy runs out to Andrea and Thomas, but the pair fail to save the boy. The sect's soldiers carry him away to the central square, where Quinn has already prepared the place of execution. Andrea tries to protect the young man, but Quinn does not let anyone speak out, and with his own hands performs a terrible ritual to purify the sect. Malcolm and Frank come to the place, but it turns out to be too late. In addition, Quinn orders the capture of the boy's father, accusing him of involvement in the crime. The leader of the sect does not like such self-rule, but Quinn declares him a false prophet and declares that now he will rule the community. To give the leader a chance to justify himself, Quinn suggests that Malcolm destroy Thomas in front of the whole village. Another death is prevented by Frank armed with a gun, He is going to get rid of the goddess, who in his opinion is to blame for what is happening. Thomas manages to escape and chases after Frank, who returns fire. Hiding behind the trees, the guy sees that the goddess is watching what is happening with a satisfied smile on her face. When Thomas finds Frank, the man turns out to be mortally wounded, but he manages to tell the guy to burn everything to the ground and leave no trace of the village. At the same second, Quinn and Malcolm rush to the scene, but the guy manages to hide under a woodshed. Quinn still doesn't want to share power, and he's going to get rid of his rival and the servants of the goddess. While hiding in the barn, Thomas sees the body of the goddess bound by roots and the remains of Jeremy being fed to the deity through a funnel. Taking advantage of this lunch break, the guy finds hanging sacks, one of which hides a weakened Jennifer. Thomas manages to free his sister, but their conversation is overheard by a servant of the goddess, who strikes Thomas, and he loses consciousness. The last thing the boy sees is Quinn taking Jennifer away with him. The tyrant's next captive becomes Andrea. Coming to his senses, Thomas sees that he is bound with iron hooks, and the servant of the goddess pulls the guy on the table under the deadly meat grinder. But the guy manages to free himself by sacrificing only his fingers, and he gets rid of the creature using the infernal device. Upon seeing the victor, the goddess calls him son and confesses that she has been waiting for him for a long time. Kneeling in front of the boy, she touches his head with her hands, and something strange begins to happen to Thomas. Quinn puts Jennifer and Andrea in a stone well, assuring them that Malcolm won't be able to help them anymore. All the while, the goddess continues to show Thomas pictures from her life, begging for her release. Rising, Thomas sets fire to the roots braiding the old woman, and coming to his senses, Malcolm sees years of his life engulfed in flames. Mad Quinn tells the girls that they will give birth every year so that he can sacrifice a worthy gift to the goddess. But at that moment, a cry of fire reaches the old man, and he realizes that the village is at an end. The villagers grab their important belongings and run to the shore to urgently leave the island. One of the villagers tells Thomas where the girls are hidden and promises to leave one of the boats for them. After reaching the dungeon, Thomas fights Quinn and manages to win, but the old man leaves many serious wounds on him. With difficulty moving around, the guy brings Jennifer and Andrea to the dock, but he can't swim with them, having lost too much blood. The guy is left lying on the grass. The island begins to crumble, and Andrea is sure the guy has no chance of survival. But when Malcolm finds him, he sees new grass growing from the guy's blood, and it becomes clear that Thomas is now the new deity of the island.
I wanna be the best in the game, invest in my name, check no restraints, I'm obsessed with the pain, I ingest, I retain, assess and I change, possessed by the thought I'll be free one day from society's restraints, money, clout and fame, mud, disease, a plague, we all love to hate, have to play the game, have to make a name, all our insecurities are on display. This is war with the enemy, think that it was meant to be.